a huge, wonderful thing about Immanuel is that it's possible to do it in group setting, which is important. Like, say, Colombia, they've just been having violence down there for decades and decades. Sri Lanka, 25 years of civil war. Practically every single person in the country has seen somebody in their family murdered in front of them. And the ones who haven't got family washed out to sea by the tidal wave, and most of them have gotten both. And Sudan, there's maybe 10 more million people with post-traumatic stress disorder. In Uganda and Congo, with the crazy Joseph Kony Lord's army, with child soldiers torturing each other. I mean, you can collect fairly quickly maybe 50 to 80 million people in the world with post-traumatic stress disorder, most of whom are in third world countries. And the chance of them having ongoing individual sessions with a well-trained therapist is zero. Well, maybe not mathematically zero, because occasionally somebody will go over there and see 5 people, in a week. So it's 0.00001, but all their techniques I know, and most people will do this once and then they learn. It's a very steep learning curve. So I have a room full of people. I said, let's say, I did this. I was doing Theophostic and thought, hey, wouldn't it be neat to do a group exercise? I've seen it work so well in my office. So, okay, everybody here, I want you all to think about a painful memory that you haven't, that's not resolved yet. And it'll take a little bit of time, because you need to sort of think about it until you feel emotionally connected, because you need to be inside the memory for it to work. Okay, now everybody on fire, good. Okay, raise your hand if you're on fire. Now, good. So everybody, I want you to invite Jesus to be with you there in the memory. Yeah. And then as you're able to perceive his presence, just ask him for help. Good. So I had a room maybe 3 times as many people here. And 20, 25, 30 of them had brilliant healing, which was pretty good. I mean, at one shot there, you have 35 people go to a painful memory, see Jesus, get healed. That was pretty great. And there's about 25 that it didn't really work, but they were able to kind of calm back down, and and they were frustrated and disappointed, but they were okay. And I had maybe 20 or 25 people who were still on fire, and it didn't work. And I realized, in my office, if somebody can't perceive Jesus, I'm a fantastic troubleshooter, and one-on-one, we would figure out, Lord, what's in the way? I'd help them recognize clues. And if I'm working with you one-on-one, I'll help you figure out what's in the way, and you'll be able to sort that through, and almost all the time, you'll be fine by the end of the session. But guess what? I had 25 people on fire at the same time. And you can't troubleshoot with that kind of one-on-one troubleshooting with 25 people. And I only did that once. And I know a number of other people who've done that once as well. So that's previously, Dr. Wilder and I we believed that it was not possible to do this with more than one person, but it's wonderful, and at least we could teach lay people to do it, which is fantastic. And then some other pieces came into place, which I'll describe very quickly. That positive memory piece. Initially, we would go to the bad memory and then focus on helping them connect with Jesus. And over a number of steps, which are on the website if you want to read the details, the idea of start at the very beginning and start with a positive memory. So the first thing you do is go to a positive memory where you can feel gratitude, get your relational circuits on, connect with Jesus there, and you can come back to that place. That's a safety net you can come back to. And for group settings, and what's neat is this is also for lay people who are beginning. All of the safety nets for group you can use for lay people who are learning this as far as just a especially safe way to do it. So first of all, we do the positive memory, appreciation, connect to Jesus. The next piece is only people who are able to do that go on to working with the painful memory. So that if you weren't able, the first part of the exercise, if you weren't able to go to a positive memory, feel gratitude, and connect to Jesus, then you just intercede this next part, don't go to a painful memory. And we found out that there was almost 100% overlap between the people who would get stuck and have trouble and the ones who weren't able to connect with Jesus that day for whatever reason. Those were the same ones who would end up at the end on fire and be a huge problem. And by identifying the folks who couldn't connect with Jesus at the beginning, we identified and protected 98% of the folks that would get in trouble. And then the third piece is we would break into little small groups so here we've done this now with 50 people and 100 people and 120 and 150 and 300, and Jim did it with 1,000 in Korea and 50 in Sri Lanka, and they've done it with groups of widows in Colombia. All over the world we've done this. When you break up into little groups, here's the last piece of the picture. So here I am, I'm looking over a group of 300 people. And we're doing the exercise, and I start with breaking you up into groups of 3 to 5. So these little pieces I'm talking about, you're doing in your little group. And I tell you, okay, now in the beginning here, you need to pay attention to the positive memories of the other people in your group, because if we get to the end and one of your people is stuck, you need to land the plane. And all you got to do is help them go back to the positive memory and reconnect with Jesus. So if I was at the front and I was looking at 300 people and there was 50 of them still crying, I'd be in trouble once again. I could try from the front to kind of coach, but that's halfway as effective. If I'm looking out and there's a whole bunch of clusters, which I did this last fall in Tennessee, so here there's 120 people in the room, and we were 15 minutes from the end, and there was 4 groups where the person was still crying. So I said, okay, folks, 15 minutes from the end, tank is mostly empty, now we need to land the planes. So if your person, and they would do it one at a time, take turns. So if the person that's currently working, if they're still at a bad place, what I want you to do now is the rest of the group, your job is to coach them back to the positive memory, and you actually know what it is. It's not just a vague instruction from the front. You can say, okay, now remember, tell me about the time with your uncle and you were at the birthday party, and you can feed them some of the details and coach them very specifically. Okay, tell me about that, tell that story again now. The bottom line is it works. From the front, I say 15 minutes, land the planes. I see 5 groups where there's still somebody crying. I know you might be tempted to try to just keep going. You need to stop now, coach them to go back to the positive memory and reconnect with Jesus. And what we get done with is there's a bunch of folks that got wonderful healing, and the people who weren't say, well, I don't know why that didn't work, but they end up back at a positive memory, connected to Jesus, feeling gratitude with their relational circuits back on. And they say, well, I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't get healed, but they're all okay.